This is the brand new Panasonic Lumix S1. We recently got the chance to take this out for the week to try it out. So naturally, we wanted to take it out in different weather conditions, different lighting, different locations, and really try out everything it has to offer to see if this brand new full frame camera can live up to the hype. So all of that video, all of these photos were taken with the brand new Panasonic Lumix S1, which is not only a brand new full frame camera from Lumix, but a brand new series, the S series. Now it's Lumix, so you know it's gonna have fantastic video capabilities, and it certainly doesn't disappoint, but they've really pushed themselves when it comes to photography, and it shows in a big way here. So let's get a little bit of spec out of the way. So the S1 has a brand new 24.2 megapixel full frame sensor with no low pass filter, and the image quality is outstanding. A lot of these photos were taken using the 24-105 f4 lens, and you can get that as part of a kit with the camera. And I was honestly really impressed with how well these pictures were coming out. In particular, something that really stuck out to me as super impressive was the dynamic range. The amount of detail in the shadows and the highlights was mind-blowing. I was able to pull so much out of the shadows and actually shoot into the sun while having a decent exposure on the sky, the shadows, everything. What was particularly impressive was that I was able to do that in JPEG, which is crazy. The amount I was able to pull and push these JPEGs was seriously impressive. I was also really impressed with the tone and color that I was getting from these pictures. Some of these were taken on a day when the sky was just a uniform gray. It was just not an interesting day in terms of light. But the tones I was able to get with this camera, the skin tones and the colors in general that I was able to capture were really impressive. Now it can also shoot 9 frames a second in continuous shooting mode, but if you need extra speed, you can shoot 6K photos at up to 30 frames a second or 4K photos at 60 frames a second. So if you're shooting a really fast moving subject, if you really need to nail a moment, you've got some serious speed to play with there. Now sticking with photo for a second, there is also a high resolution mode where the camera will take 4 separate pictures while the sensor moves around in the camera to create one high resolution RAW file, approximately 4 times the size of your normal file. Now this is great for fine detail photos or landscape photos, anything where you can keep the camera still and get that, you're gonna get so much detail in those pictures. It can also shoot in HLG, which is great for displaying on HLG TVs. Now it doesn't work in print, but for those HLG TVs, it gives a much more natural render to subjects prone to washout and improved textures in high brightness areas. Now in terms of autofocus, the S1 has 225 autofocus areas. It just works so well. It's so easy to use the joystick to move your focus point while your eye is up to the viewfinder, or use the touchscreen to select your focus point. It's just so quick and it just works really, really well. Now Lumix told us there'd been a lot of work going into intelligent deep learning to be able to identify and focus in on human faces and animal faces, and I've got to say it worked really well. The face detection just seems to work, which is basically exactly what you want out of it. There's also a really nice touch where you put your eye up to the viewfinder, it also activates the autofocus as well as switching over to the viewfinder. So by the time your eye is against it, you're already focused in, which means that you're ready to take the shot. Now, that's a nice little touch, but it's something that's really going to come in handy that moment when you need it most. Now, while we're talking about autofocus, it's also able to focus down to -6 EV, so it's great for shooting in lower light situations. And something else that's going to help in lower light situations is the 6-stop 5-axis dual IS, and the image stabilization has been completely redesigned. It works incredibly well, meaning that you can shoot with slower shutter speeds easily, and it works really well for shooting handheld video. All the video that I shot was handheld, and it was made a lot easier by the excellent IS. There's even a boost IS for video that you can turn on, and it just helps even more when shooting handheld video, especially if you're zooming in or out. Now, speaking of video, as you'd expect from a Lumix camera, this camera has some serious video specs. It'll shoot 4K at up to 60 frames a second and up to 150 megabits a second, and there's no crop when shooting 4K at 24, 25 or 30 frames a second. Now this is the part of the video where I would normally say it'll also shoot at Full HD 1080p at 120 frames a second, but Lumix have upped this as well, and it'll actually shoot up to 180 frames a second in Full HD 1080p. That means you can get 6 times slow motion in Full HD. And that's really something special. Now it switches to manual focus only when you go into the high frame rates, but that is seriously impressive for creative shooting. That's incredible. The video settings and performance are, as you'd expect, completely outstanding. They're really impressive. This is definitely a camera I want to shoot with again as soon as possible. So let's talk about the camera itself. It's actually a decent size. I actually really like the size of this camera. It kind of rides the line between the smaller size of mirrorless cameras, but it's still big enough to feel like a pro camera. It feels particularly nice to hold and to use, and a big part of that is the big, comfortable grip. It's a solid build as well. It's got a splash, dust, and freeze-resistant design, and it feels strong. The viewfinder is another area where Lumix have excelled. It's a 5760K.LVF with resolution close to the human eye. It actually looks incredible. It doesn't look like a typical electronic viewfinder. It's also running at 120 frames a second, which really helps, making it super smooth. And coming from someone who doesn't often like electronic viewfinders, this one was a joy to use. I found myself using the viewfinder a lot more than I would on other mirrorless cameras. But it's also got a 3.2-inch LCD touchscreen, and this is a 2100K screen with RGBW, which includes white dots to show a clear image even in strong sunlight. It's also worth mentioning it has 2 card slots, one for SD UHS 2 and one for XQD. Now this camera is being launched with 3 lenses, the 24-105 f4, which is kind of like a kit lens for this camera, and we use that extensively in this video for photos and video, the 70-200 f4, which we use for some of the photos in this video as well, and the 50mm f1.4, which we haven't got our hands on yet, but it looks lovely. But on top of that, there are also the Leica L lenses, which are compatible with this camera, and they are lovely, and we also use the M-mount adapter with, frankly, fantastic results. The Lumix S1 is an absolutely fantastic camera. It's obviously outstanding for video, as you'd expect, but with their new system, Lumix have created a fantastic photographic camera as well. Everything just feels great to use, and the results are incredible. If you have any questions about the Lumix S1, the new system, or really anything at all, pop them down in the comments below. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you like the video, make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already. I'll see you in the next video. And, as always, thanks for watching.